All right. I'm so happy to see Annabelle in front of me finally.
Happy to see you.
How are you? How are you doing?
I'm great. Enjoying the weather.
Yeah, just need a cup of coffee.
Yes. Let's grab a cup of coffee if we could.
Without sugar.
Without sugar, yes, absolutely. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about fiber options for dogs.
Sounds great.
So, what is the first thing you think of? Fiber options.
Well, it's more like for humans, like vegetables. But my dog hates vegetables.
Oh,
so
she does?
She does. She hates it.
Well, that's advertisement time. I have a special technique that makes vegetable delicious.
Literally, I was feeding her, because I think the other day we were talking about spinach.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let me just go get some salad grade organic spinach that I don't even give myself. And then so I decided to just give it to her. And her face was just absolutely like, what is this that you're feeding me? It's disgusting. Because, I had to hand feed it into her mouth.
Oh my God.
And then immediately as it touched her tongue, she just straight up opened her mouth and pick. The spinach just dropped out of her mouth.
So cute.
Yeah. And then she looked at me. Yeah. And then she looked at me and kind of the expression was super disgusted. What did you do? You should be sent to jail for feeding me spinach.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. All right. So, yeah. Well, now it's a new concern, not really a concern. I tell you what, because usually people think of feeding dogs and cats, they think about meat, and also because of the newer trend of the last 10 years, I would say, people start cooking for their pets or feeding raw meat. So now they have one more thing to worry about, that is the fiber content. Why? Because usually when you look at a pack of kibbles, you see crude fibers and all these synthetic fibers and stuff. These are byproducts of other food ingredients. So when we start cooking for our dogs and cats, very often we would take a pack of pet food for reference to see, what been having, what have they been having, and what should I cook for them and stuff. And we try to compensate that with real food. So, but that's really interesting because when we look at a pet food packages, we try to pick up, okay, when you see duck meat, okay, I can get duck meat. When you say carrot, yeah, sure, I can get carrot. Beetroot, yeah, sure, fantastic. And they started to say, oh, corn fiber.
Oh, corn is really bad. No?
Yes, it's really bad. Where do I get corn fiber? Is it okay not to have corn fiber? And they start, Googling away. Say, okay, what's corn fiber? And they see a list of bad things about corn fiber, and they start to panic. Should I get them spinach? And they start to Google spinach for dog, good or bad, and say, oh, you shouldn't have spinach because if your dog have renal issues or if it's older than 8, so what should I do? What about sweet potatoes? Well, sweet potato and then very high sugar content. So, what should I feed? Okay, so today we're going to talk about that and try to unknot some of the issues that you have in your head, because comparing to pet food manufacturers, we do have a lot less options because we're using real food. But we also have to understand, when we look at nutrition and food, we do not just look at the food itself. We need to look at the whole nutrient profile. Okay. Of course, if you look at a sweet potato, the standout element of this food is
the jacket. No.
Yeah, the carbohydrate, the highest content carbohydrate.
Okay.
But doesn't mean that.
I just really wanted to say that word because I feel like I learned that. It's called the jacket.
But that's so interesting. A lot of people don't know what it means, the jacket.
No, I didn't know, and then you told me. And then it registered in my head.
Yeah, that's called a jacket.
Do not ever forget this. It's called a jacket. And when I see an actual jacket, I'm like, sweet potato.
But I don't know where's that from, though. I think probably they got it from this baked potato. So you make a cross in the center, and you bake it, and it looks like a leather jacket.
But you think about it, it makes sense, right?
Yes. Yes, it makes sense. All right. So when you look at the sweet potato, the highest content is carbohydrate.
Yeah.
But of course, we all know that we don't need a lot of carbohydrate, but a little bit of carbohydrate is harmless. And also, if you look at for example, the most nutritious part is the jacket. But if you break down the jacket, it is carbohydrate. Okay, so if you break down collagen, it's type of protein. Okay, so we try not to demonize any elements.
And you need all of it. It's all the building blocks.
Yes, as a whole.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, sweet potato is good. As long as you don't use the super sweet one, like the candy sweet potato. Have you ever seen one that like a thumb size sweet potato?
Not that small.
From Japan?
I have seen from this really big popular supermarket.
Yes. Yeah. Like they taste like candies. But they're not artificial.
Too sweet.
They're real sweet potato. We usually avoid that type of fancy vegetable. Well, I look at them as a replacement for candies, like me myself. Look, because when things like, for example, cotton candy grapes, and when you taste it, it tastes exactly like cotton candy. But so it doesn't. So when you look at the nutrition profile of the food, and you know that you probably shouldn't have that, or probably just go for a pack of cotton candy because it's a lot cheaper. And so when we look at the food fibers, so a lot of people they cannot get over with the fact that we Google everything, and the food fiber, the sweet potato is bad, and then corn is bad for sure, but also, what about broccoli? They say if your dog is too old, you shouldn't have broccoli, or if your dog is lactating, like breastfeeding puppies, you shouldn't have broccoli and all that. But now today I'm going to tell you these are all good, and also, and later we'll go back to the food label on the food fiber, because the law is changing. Everybody knows that if you say crude fibers, it's supposed to be something bad, and the pet food manufacturers, they're well aware of that. They look at the sales and they know they have a huge, very efficient legal team and research team, to work for them, knowing what sells and what not. So now they're actually changing the law. They're registering water soluble fiber and insoluble fiber into the same category. So, well, they just need to apply, fill in a form, and have the if it's safe for if it's safe for human, it's safe for pet. This is the argument point. And in human processed food, sometimes we do have insoluble fibers, that we cannot digest. When we think about that, we usually think about plant. There are fibers that in plant that we cannot digest for sure.
Yeah.
So with that arguing point, we cannot eliminate that if a fiber cannot be digested, it's bad for pet. It works both ways, right? So now they are changing the law. I don't know if it's approved. The last time I checked, it still hasn't approved yet, but a lot of a smaller company are already producing this kind of food packaging. They changed it from crude fiber to dietary fiber. Exactly the same as human. So you wouldn't know. They can use, like, for example, tree pulp, like the leftover of the trees. You can declare it's dietary fibers, and it's legal. Okay, and why is it legal for some smaller company? Because there's a sales amount. If you sell less than a certain amount, you can get exemption. So they're already doing that for a smaller batches company that, selling pet food. But so why am I saying that? Is before, I think we should be in a position that knowing what's going on, so we can make better options instead of being reactive to it later when things happen.
Okay, I'm slightly lost now.
Yeah.
So we were talking about all these kinds of food with fibers,
yes,
right? And so far we've named like all of the sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get like stuff from Japan or something like that.
Yes.
Get like the organic, the good ones.
Yeah.
Broccoli, sweet potato. What else did we say? spinach, all of that is good. And then, so how does the dietary fiber actually come into it? Because if we actually go and buy all of these things, there's no food label on it. Or are you talking about the food packages?
Yeah, I'm talking about the food packages.
Right.
So a lot of parents that they would, like, not you and I, for sure, because we've been talking, I know your habit and you know my thought on things, but a lot of food parents, they will actually pick up a pack of packed food and try to recreate that at home. Because their baby used to have this, and they now know that it is bad, so they try to recreate the similar. So as long as they're hoping that to make the change of diet easier.
I would never even try to do that, because I know that in a food label they don't disclose everything.
No, and not everyone knows about this.
And
trust me.
Yeah, I know.
No, not everyone knows, and. It's not something that people talked about regularly.
So where can we find insoluble fiber, like naturally occurring?
Okay. Well, in general, it's not easy to find insoluble food fibers in human consumption food. For example, corn. As long as you don't eat the core, you don't really get it.
Or like seeds and stuff.
And for example, older plant, the older they are, the fiber become insoluble. So parts that we usually don't eat, most of the time, most of the parts that we don't eat, they have insoluble fibers, and that's why a lot of company, when they produce pet food, it's more for economical reasons.
Yeah, because no one wants it, right?
Yeah,
it's cheap.
It's harmless anyway. They think it's harmless. So if you look at the nutrient profile, it is harmless. It's not toxic. But then now the another issue is, now we talk about if you keep eating things that you shouldn't be eating, or there's no reason to be there, and there will be certain outcome. For example, your body will need more water to digest it, and if your animal doesn't have that kind of habit, that's chronic dehydration. And chronic dehydration is pretty much the roots for all the chronic disease. And that's the thing that we're talking about. And let alone the food itself is dry. And that's a double bullet for that. So
how do we solve it?
How do we solve this? So if you are feeding your dogs a raw diet, or if you're just cooking meat at home, you can supplement that with digestible and easy to get ingredients. For example, what I mentioned before, sweet potato is actually good. Sweet potato is actually good, but think about, like, you don't feed sweet potato every day, probably 3 to 4 meals per week, and that's good enough for to keep the microbial coloned in the intestine, so they can digest food better. And also, people now trendy food, flaxseed.
Oh, really?
That's trendy, but do pay attention. You need to get whole flaxseed and grind it yourself before you use it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to oxidize within 10 minutes. So there are a bottle of packets of grained flaxseed out there. If it's oxidated, you don't need to get it anyways. So get a whole one. Yeah, try to get a small coffee grinder and grind it before you
Sounds like a lot of work.
So this is not your option, though. Not your option then. So don't get that. Broccoli, it's good. Broccoli, it's good, especially
except if there's renal problems.
Yeah, yes. If your animal is suffering from renal problems, like, probably not too much to stay away from it. But broccoli, it's good when your puppy has a tumor or cancer.
Oh, really?
Because it helps regulate the hormones that are overflown. When your puppy has tumor or cancer, groups of hormones are oppressed, and the other groups is overflowing. So broccoli helps to.
What about its friend cauliflower?
Cauliflower is good, but not. It doesn't have as much fiber as broccoli, but it's good. Cauliflower is good, and it's a really popular options if you want to replace carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. You can make rice, burgers, everything. You can even replace starch, cornstarch, if you want to make your dog a patty, and if your dog is so used to having like pet food patty and not lost their interest in real food, get your cauliflower pulp, cooked it, juice it, and keep the leftover, mix it with the meat. That's a delicious patty that they loved. And also the same way that if your dog hates vegetable, usually is how we do it. We cooked it, we
mix
juice
it with the meat.
Yes, we juice it and put it back into the meat sauce. So when it absorbs the meat. Have you heard about the new product?
That's a very good idea. It's like genius.
Exactly like the new product, like the new pork that you will see in some of the fast food restaurants that are vegetables. Not even vegetables, but plant-based.
Yeah.
And they use a lot of fibers to hold together the juice. So it tastes like meat. Exactly the same theory. Pumpkin is good too.
Yeah.
Pumpkin is good. Stay away from the Japanese one. Sorry, Japan. I do love Japan. I used to go there
I love Japanese food.
Yes, I love Japanese food.
Unfortunately, it's not very good.
I enjoy the vegetable and fruit too myself, but not very good for my dogs, which it's not catered for dogs. But apple is really good too, believe it or not. Not citrus, but apple is really good. So do it in moderation, and don't worry about too much about a carbohydrate, because after all, it is not meat. If it's not protein, it's either fat or carbohydrate. So don't worry too much about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that, and I will keep you updated on the new law. So why do we have to put fibers? And some people argue that but in nature they will hunt a rabbit or a squirrel. They don't care about fibers. Why are you talking about why fibers? Because actually they do. There are fibers in the rabbit or in the squirrel's stomach, and eating that can help them form a really healthy probiotic colony in the intestine. So ultimately, it's really helpful when it comes to absorbing nutrients. Okay, and also poops. It helps the animal. Dogs and cats that are on raw food diets, they don't poop a lot. And when they poop, usually it's not sticky. You can just pick it up, but they're not
still
exactly
a bit soft.
Yeah, it's a little bit soft because there's not much fiber in it. So nothing wrong with it. But think about I think when we talk about pets, there's no way that we keep a pet like a wildlife animal. And it's really deep. It is a deep-rooted habit and psychological thing to see your animal having healthy poop. Healthy poop, I mean like people like to see firm. Like you can pick it and it's not slimy. It doesn't particularly smelly, and that's our idea of healthy poop.
I thought healthy poop is just like not too hard, not too soft.
Yeah, not too hard, not too soft.
Yeah.
And when we see a slightly juicier poop, or sticky poop, or slimier, or darker, or less poop getting out from our babies, that we can't help but start thinking,
something's wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong. So if it's harmless, especially when especially your babies have no access to the wild fruit and other vegetables. So it is beneficial for them to have a little bit of apples or broccoli or sweet potato. So the carbohydrate and the little bit of sugar content can help the colon and help the probiotic colony to thrive. And also the side effect is the poop will look slightly firmer and drier. If you're feeding a meat-based diet, a drier, less slimy. So that's a good thing too. And also, I talked about the probiotic colony in the intestine. Like people don't usually think about that, but it's such a key part to a healthy emotions, like healthy psychological effect in a pet's in the pet's daily life, you see elevated mood and higher energy, and
well, it's the same thing, right? Because
it's
it helps you digest, it helps you absorb nutrients, then you're happier.
It links to the brain and also the intestine. So now we talk about carbohydrate fibers in pet food, like always. Nobody usually pay attention to that, but if you're feeding a home cooked diet or raw diet, it is a thing now. We need to pay attention to that, but in the same time, don't worry too much about when we look at the food. Just don't look at it as okay. Well, feeding sweet potato is wrong, or shouldn't give them pear is wrong. So a bit of everything is always good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Variety is always good, I think.
So what do you so you can't feed your puppy spinach? So what else?
Everything else. It's like sweet potato, pumpkin, what else? Rice sometimes we do it. Cucumbers.
She likes
cucumbers. What else is there? Just quite a lot of different things. She liked papaya for a bit.
Okay.
But it's not good because fruits are just so sweet. Right? You can't really find non-sweet fruits.
Or we just give her a smaller piece.
Yeah,
smaller piece is good.
Yeah.
Papaya. Well, usually after having papaya, they have this particular stinky poop. I don't know if
Well, even for humans, right? It's very smelly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually kelp is good too, but I try not to mention it because I know a lot of dogs in Hong Kong, they are allergic to kelp, the type of seaweed. A lot of them have a special reaction to it. So try to, if you're experimenting with this type of food, try one ingredient per week.
Yeah.
Not every day.
So if they're allergic to something, right? Yeah.
Not one thing a day, one thing per week. So you can observe.
Yeah.
And sometimes the reaction doesn't come out immediately. And sometimes it lasts for like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So if you're trying different new things every day, that it's harder for you to observe and make a record of it.
I just have one last question.
Yes.
This is not very related to fiber, but recently, you just mentioned it a bit. My dog has stopped eating fresh food, like freshly cooked food. She now wants to eat her packaged food only. And I don't know what's wrong.
Let her.
Yeah, so we're just letting her, right? We can't just starve her forever.
Let her. It's really interesting. Things like this happened for different reasons. For example, if your dog is sick or when they reach the hospital, they want the comfort food. They want the food that they know when they were a baby.
They want junk food, just like humans, right? Sometimes I really need something that's really bad for me.
Sometimes hello, yeah. So they want to go back to that for a bit, but babies that they have a new appetite for fresh food. When they go back to the kibbles, they would realize, like in 1 or 2 days, probably, they have certain kind of reaction for it. They want to throw up, they feel bloated. They can't tell you that they feel bloated, but you can hear the belly, there are noises in the belly, and they don't feel like eating. They feel bloated, and they're building up a unpleasant memory of this food too. So especially when you first switch to a whole food diet, there are swings. Like it suddenly stops and it swing back. But very quickly, it will swing back to normal. It's just like human addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like quitting, for example, smoking.
And then you go back sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they will always crave for fresh food because it feed them the best.
Yeah.
It nourish them the best.
Yeah.
And there's no bloated, no issue, and always pleasant memories. So yeah. And maybe sometimes if it's too hot, that I know some people, they like to feed their pet freshly cooked food. When the weather is slightly warmer, it's harder to enjoy a warmer meal. And that's too. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, so experiment and see.
Yeah, just let her be. This is. I just don't want to stress myself.
So what do you do with the pack of spinach then? You guys took it?
Yeah, I ate it. Let's not waste the salad grade.
Yes.
Nice spinach. All the way from
So
Australia.
eat her leftover. Like I do too. Whatever they don't eat, okay, I'll take it myself.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.